No one is immune from this. The members of the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy focus on ensuring that pharmacies and pharmacists are providing safe medications and patient services for you and your family. Learn how to keep you and your loved ones safe at nabp.pharmacy.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we got up today, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. As people are assembling over there on those pages, we've got a lot to talk about here today. I usually have, a few pages, few tabs going on, but I can't even read the titles of the ones I've got in front of me anymore. They're so small, and I've got so many because, not that anyone would have expected this wouldn't be somewhat of an eventful weekend. It even came in surprising ways for me. Among other things, our announcement post may be a little bit longer than usual today. Trial date set for indicted Walmart shooter, UMC certificates of obligation vote, more raises for teachers and staff from Borderland School District, proposed downtown arena costs and city manager salary, and maybe just a little bit on the Supreme Court because, that ain't going away anytime soon, even as there are more decisions out today, among other things. So, ever so slightly, one of those busy news weekends and days, and I'll be surprised if we even get to all of that within this show, particularly as we get into more of the comments and your calls and such a little bit later in the program, as we usually do. But yes, a lot is still, of course, coming out of the aftershocks of the Supreme Court announcing the effective overturning of Roe v. Wade and sending it back to the states. Essentially, there have been some incidents, not that I'm aware of locally anyway, but of course, this is not, again, going away anytime soon. So I'm sure we'll see more about that as we have John Hertz chiming in, displaying his displeasure with the current administration, saying Joe Biden's administration is a dumpster fire, his emphasis on fire there. And I'm sure we'll have more commentary on things related to that. I mean, don't get me wrong. We got supply chain issues, border issues, all that stuff also simmering in the background. But these are some of the top ones for us here today. And so really getting on some of these very specific things here. Again, this is one of the things that ever since it happened, including live coverage we brought you on the day of, not necessarily on this program, but related to it, that of a murder trial date set for the suspected, and again, my emphasis, indicted Walmart shooter, Crucius. It's about the only time I'm going to say his name in this program. But that has now been set for, it was a compromise date setting, according to both our news partners over at KFOX 14 and some other local reporters who are in the area and were in the courtroom at that point in time, including from the El Paso Times and also over from KTEP, actually. There was a lot of interesting focus on what it might be, essentially with prosecutors calling for a 2023 date and with the defense calling for a 2025 date. So the essentially compromise dates, again, according to court documents obtained by our news partners over at KFOX 14, will be January 8th, 2024. So, it's going to be more than a year away at this point. At no particular point in this entire process did I think that this would be a very quick turnaround. And of course, that has borne out more than a little bit, but it's still being more than a year and a half out. Let's just call it that here at this point is, I guess, mildly surprising to me that it would be that far out, as we have seen quite a lot of time pass. I mean, even with the intervention of the pandemic into this and slowing down otherwise court proceedings, I don't think any of that kind of argumentation really flies when you're talking about this subject. And one of the probably, I don't think that I would be much out of place to call this one of the more significant prosecutions to have happened in the history of this area, region, or at the very least, the way it's currently governmentally organized. Sure, there may have been some other significant things happening in the time and place when there were, among other things, still lynchings going on. But in the way in modern era, this has got to be probably one of the more significant, if not one of the more anticipated prosecutions happening in this area. So for it to still be so far off, I have very mixed emotions about it personally, I'll tell you that much, because I definitely want it to move forward, and I don't want there to be any, and I do mean any of those stupid technicalities that could deal with this and make it then on appeal or any subsequent legal issue come up as it just happens that way. Sure, dude was dead to rights, but we got to deal with it this way because someone messed up in the process. That would be one of the worst outcomes I have to feel about this. But I also am reminded of the phrase, justice delayed is justice denied. And so I, again, have some feelings about this. I'm glad we at least have a date. Having a date is something. We have not had a date up until this weekend. You might be wondering, why didn't we talk about this last week? Because it happened on Saturday. Again, another one of those busy news weekends, which I feel like what didn't used to be a thing, but well, it's a thing now, apparently. Why I never really have to worry about what we're going to talk about Monday, because I am usually pretty sure that we're going to have plenty to talk about on Monday, and this one just really exemplifies that whole concept there. So, yes, the, again, indicted Walmart shooters, date for trial, January 8th, 2024, and this is, again, the Texas trial, capital murder, Texas, but there are also federal hate crimes and firearms offenses, and those might take a little bit longer. I don't think they've even been fully set yet. So again, we are talking about what will be happening here. Notable in this is that I have not seen anything concretely about any change of venue, any movement on that. So there may be some that are going to be sharing some strong opinions on what they feel should or shouldn't be done to this particular individual. But the way I'm going to talk about this anyway, up until we get there, because again, the prosecution of justice and the accurate and complete function of it is very important to me. And that's why I'm going to talk about it and use very careful language as we continue on in this and bring y'all updates as much as possible. Because seriously, if there were to be anything messed up in this, I certainly won't be a party to it. And if anyone wants to share their opinion, you're of course more than entitled to. Just know that there are very specific ways we will continue to refer to this case in order to make sure that, I guess I have two major priorities beyond the making sure it goes through correctly and completely, but also keeping it here, because that would be... that I definitely have a lot of emotions about. The idea of it being moved out of here, change of jurisdiction, because, yeah, it happened here. It needs to be dealt with here. Michael Robert Tipton chiming on over on the Facebook page. Would be very typical of El Paso if they drop the ball in this whole case. This should be an open and shut of a case as there could possibly be. And yet, as we know, even if you've only seen procedural courtroom dramas, sure, those maybe aggrandize them more than a little bit. But still, I have sat in on plenty of cases myself within both the El Paso County Courthouse, other federal courthouses in the area, and beyond, that there are many, many ways, many foibles and trip-ups that can be effectuated to potentially change the outcome, even on appeal of a case here. So making sure it's done correctly, all the T's crossed, all the I's dotted, and everything done correctly, very, very important. So that's what, among other things, we will certainly have a focus on, even as RJ is suggesting a particular kind of activity happen here. If you want to see the comments for yourself, we're over on those various social media ways. But again, there's going to be very specific ways we continue to refer to this, and the language we use is going to be no mistake, because seeing this done correctly, not that I'm in the courtroom, if I could call for jury duty on this, that would be a coincidence of the highest order, but I'm otherwise not a judge, probably not going to be a juror, or any other member of the courts. Going to do what we do on this end for that purpose. That's only one thing going on here today, of course. That's a major update and watch the top of our show, but we got a lot more going on, among other things. That UMC vote for the potential of that new certificates of obligation bond that would go out for, again, University Medical Center and related facilities, as well as a whole lot more of talking about public expenditures in the local area. Quite the focus both this weekend and the very end of last week, even right after our show, to be honest with you. So we'll be talking a whole lot more about that. Just to list them off here, we got county, we got city, we got school districts, and we'll be talking about all of that and a whole lot more after this first break of the hour here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Of course, you're tuned in for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. We got a lot for you today, so stay locked in here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Back in a minute.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound approaching Mesa Street. A crash there has cleared up. All lanes are back open, but backup remains from Mesa up to Artcraft westbound on the 10. It's a 5 to 10 minute delay. I-10 westbound at Sunland Park, a stalled vehicle block of the right shoulder. It's a large tractor trailer. I-10 eastbound at Artcraft, disabled truck block of the right shoulder. And Montana Avenue eastbound at Rich Beam Boulevard. Police on the scene of a crash. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
While the world bickers over why prices are so high, you drift on over to your happy place. We've got your shot at $1,000 with Inflation Vacation. Listen every hour from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. weekdays for your chance to win $1,000.
Bank for Your Tank is brought to you by the El Paso Zoo Society. Take a rock on the wild side. Rock and Roar Music Festival, July 2nd at the El Paso Zoo. 2 music stages, a silent disco, arcade games, and so much more. Get tickets at elpasozoosociety.org.
This report is sponsored by Discover. If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. And that's why Discover matches all of the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
With so many real estate agents to choose from, how do you find the best one? Hi, it's Glenn Beck. One key is just looking for the investment that an agent is willing to make to get your home sold. Brian Birds with eXp Realty and his team have a marketing budget 25 times higher than the average agent's annual income. This means your home gets maximum exposure because it's marketed to the widest possible audience and gets you the highest possible sales price. Brian is so confident in his ability to sell your home fast and for more money that he's willing to put his own money on the line. If your home doesn't sell at the price and deadline you agreed to, he'll buy it from you himself. You're not going to find another real estate agent in El Paso who is that invested in getting your home sold. He's the only one I'd call. Google Brian Birds. That's Brian, B-U-R-D-S. Read over 400 5-star reviews because I'm not the only one who knows you should call Brian Birds. Google Brian Birds or just check out brianbirds.com.
When it comes to mixing drugs, you may think you have a safe approach, but the bottom line is mixing drugs is never safe. It can cause serious health problems like a heart attack or brain damage. Learn more at cdc.gov/stop-overdose.
Hand me that nail gun. Here you go. And here's the fries. Lunch. Who's hungry? You know, maybe instead of loading up a nail gun with French fries to feed the crew, we should just order lunch through Easy Cater. Food from all our favorite restaurants. My bad. On time and as ordered. Delicious. Huh. Load up the hot dogs while I think about it.
Some food just doesn't work at work, but Easy Cater just does. Food for work on time and as ordered from over 85,000 restaurants. Order 24/7 at easycater.com.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to get at the show. Of course, we do have the various social media pages. We're up on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk are the places to find us there. But also, we, of course, have that phone line. We'll be opening up a little bit later in the program. We got just so much even to lay out for you here today. I wouldn't be surprised if a topic or two ends up spilling over to tomorrow because we've got a longer announcement post on the social media than we usually do just because of that. And we got a lot of stuff. Another jam-packed week. I'm just going to call that right now. Not that I want to be proved wrong, but I take it as a breather if we were to be proved wrong on that. No evidence that'll happen anytime soon, though. A lot of people chiming in already. John Browselton, RJ, Michael Robert Tipton, John Hertz, and more also dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate greatly. Ed Clore, Robert Haynes, Blanca Jimenez, Michael Robert Tipton, Robbie Flores, and Monica Cervantes just helps us with all those algorithmic things. And RJ thinking, I'm thinking 2,500 to get 12 jurors who can look at just the evidence, not seeing an acquittal here. Like taking 2,500 people to find the 12 jurors who can just look at the evidence? Maybe. I think that's okay. Just to make it clear, I mean, we had the previous comment about the expectation of how this will work. I have no reason at this point to believe or disbelieve that, of course, the district attorney and any of the local officials, much less any of the federal ones that are going to be involved in this case, will do anything but the full and correct job with it. I just fully believe, and I don't think anyone's really going to come at me on this one, that if it were not to be carried out fully, if any of those technicalities were to pop up that could endanger the outcome of this case for any other reason besides what the evidence shows, that would be just one of the worst potential outcomes coming out of this. And I want to avoid that at all possibilities here. But John Browston, on the other part of what we're talking about here today, at least in part, local expenditures could be a good subtitle for today's show if you want to have it in short. John saying the problem with 17 taxing agencies in El Paso, none of them care how much you're being taxed by other agencies. They only care about their budgets supported by more taxes each year. Yeah, I've heard the analogy, and it just kind of keeps hitting closer to home. Remember your school days, particularly if you were taking like any advanced classes, one of those homework heavy loads, and the teachers are all like, I don't care what the other teachers are giving you from homework. You're going to have 3 hours of homework for this one. And yeah, you get 3 hours of homework from each of your 6 different classes. And when were you supposed to sleep before you went to school again the next day? Anyway, that's my midnight fever dream, remembering waking up that I'm a grown damn adult and no longer in high school, waking up in a cold sweat kind of situation. That does similarly feel. You can see the line of reasoning, if you take my meaning, from that to now with how these taxing agencies work. And there's been a little bit of acknowledgement. I want to say at least one city rep broke out that breakdown of the tax dollar, quote unquote tax dollar, that for every dollar you pay in taxes, here's how it goes to each agency, though it's kind of missing the and here's how much you have to pay overall, among other things, just because the vote and parts of it, I think we even have part of the news update probably coming up on this. What is going on with the, county hospital district, also, of course, UMC, University Medical Center, and that $345 million certificate of obligation price tag. Some of those votes potentially coming up today, of course, postponed until this point after, well, as we talked with Stephanie Seifert with our news partners over there at KFOX 14 last week, a little bit of a who knew what when, and was there enough time to decide upon it, essentially pushing it to this week. So some of the estimation on this, I don't like the figure, but at least it gives you a good round number, around $20, $30 per $100,000 of home value. But then, of course, you got to remember that the median price of homes in El Paso has, of course, risen as these property values have. So we're getting closer to roughly the $200,000 mark. Let's just call that a decent benchmark, which means you're looking at, just from this instant, paying 50, 60 therein for, again, the median house in El Paso. So for the middle of it, you might pay more. Your mileage is definitely going to vary depending on how your property is evaluated. And again, if you've had any contestation of what the actual appraised value from the CAD, that is, has been, in any case, it's going to cost you more. That much is not exactly in controversy, but whether it actually goes through or not, because so the vote that might happen very early this week or in subsequent weeks wouldn't immediately cause it to happen. It starts essentially a waiting period, 45 days minimum, as required to allow there to be public notice about it before anything would actually be begun in issuing this debt. Now, you may be wondering, there's a very kind of fraught phrase that goes along with this, the idea of non-voter approved. Because I think that at least sometimes the way this is discussed makes it seem like, so what, they're committing fraud? We didn't allow them to do this? It kind of begs the question, wait, should we have voted for it? And technically, no. Realistically, yeah, probably we should have voted for it, but that's not the way they're going about it in this case. Doesn't mean that it's necessarily wrong, though tactically, strategically, politically speaking, might not be the rightest way for it. RJ waking up in a cold sweat. Thanks for the memories. Sorry, I'm sure we've all been there about we have to actively remember in a dream, wait, I graduated years ago. No, I don't have a test that I need to go for. And yes, I am probably wearing pants of them. I'm in school. So sorry for the triggering moment there for you. But yeah, these taxes and the impact on them could be, of course, some of the details on why UMC and the county are considering this would be, among other things, needing to expand facilities. I mean, we definitely saw a lot of use of healthcare in the midst of the pandemic and a lot of related things. And now as things have been, it's been kind of a cold simmer story on the back burner for a while now about how many medical procedure, how many otherwise probably pretty important and otherwise front of the line kind of things got very much pushed off to the side in the wake of the pandemic and all of the things that were happening in hospitals and the requirements of facility staffing, etc. therein. So now as they're looking to refocus back on this, I don't think this is the immediate answer to it, but certainly a part of with a growing population, because El Paso did grow, even if not as much as the rest of Texas. looking at, okay, what do we actually need to deal with? That's a lot of the reasoning going in this, going for more, some of the satellite facilities, some of the core facilities, burn centers. Again, we've talked about all of this, and you can see a lot of the information coming out from our news partners over at KFOX 14. And that meeting, let's see if it's actually still going on at this point in time. Often is, and it is noted over there that Estefania is there today. And yep, that meeting is still going. So I have no exact hope that we're going to be done with this anytime soon. God bless. I'm not even sure if this the vote has fully been taken on this particular issue yet. I think it was supposed to be slated for this morning here. So the vote was this morning, so I'm sure we'll have more on it this way. Kathy Codry saying no more increases on property taxes, enough already. That, of course, is a big part of the conversation that has been going on for just about any entity that has taxing authority in our area. Again, a lot of holding the line in different ways as we were muddling our way through the pandemic. So now as we are more or less, quote unquote, emerging from it, but whether the economy is truly there to support it is another question entirely. But the idea of this coming and what that would mean for us, I guess if they truly, let's just assume, just for the sake of argumentation here, that this were to go through, that county commissioners say, yes, this makes sense, meets the needs, we agree with it, what have you. Not putting words in their mouth, but let's assume that that is what is done here. I see a couple of ways that could be dealt with it. Not necessarily the most likely one, but a couple of avenues. Either they stick with and therefore county taxes are staying flat, or we are keeping it at rather probably the same amount of revenue brought in just into the county coffers as previous years, which could, depending is the very complicated word that a lot goes into it, depending on if the economy continues on, continuing if housing prices continue to rise, continuing if the housing market still stays as cooling, but if you're cooling from, a 2,000 degrees to 1,900 degrees, still pretty red hot, even if cooling is happening, if you take my meaning there. All of these depends would make it then, if they want to keep it flat. Of course, they could just say, keeping the same pricing rate, but if property values are still going up, then, well, you know what happens there. More of a percentage, the same percentage on more of a value means you end up paying more, which is essentially what the city has previously done. The second avenue I see that the county could do, if this is truly their intent, would be to say, okay, we are therefore going to drop county taxing to offset this. Now, do I think that necessarily that option is the most likely? I don't hold my breath on a lot of the issues we talk about here, but I see this one as potentially less likely than most, but it is an avenue that could be explored if, again, the impacts of taxes on local, particularly homeowners, of which has definitely been weighing on my head lately. Absolutely. Doing that would make this slightly more palatable, I would say, whether or not there could be found that, because sure, you may think, okay, finding $60 out of my taxes per year, sure, then it would also raise the questions, why wouldn't they have done this before now? But also, we're talking about $300 million plus $345 million, that figure we've been throwing around, taken out of the county's budget. So I'm not saying that I think it will happen or even be that palatable to particularly those, because really when you think about county commissioners, yes, they are beholden to us, the public, the people who elect them. They also are employers in their own right. Most of the county commissioners' meetings, in retrospect, it feels like we're a lot of ending up being contract negotiations, particularly with some of the county agencies, the sheriff's department, chief among them in my mind, that were then funded by them, and any cuts tended to be very, let's just say, not well regarded when they were falling on some of those avenues and ways. So again, don't think it'll be terrifically the most possible outcome of this, but it is a potential one that I think it would behoove them to at least consider as we get closer to this, and as we see what votes and outcomes they are going to have when it comes to these major new expenditures. I guess one of the major questions that has also continued to come out of this would be, hey, what is the exact timing of this? Does it make the most sense right now with money getting more expensive? Are you trying to, say, lock in rates? Because the fact of the matter is, to my understanding, I'm not a financial advisor, never been a legal advisor or any of those good things. Please don't take just my advice and go and be like, yes, put it all on black. Never do that. The idea of issuing bonds at a lower interest rate sure might make it easier for the county, but then might it make those bonds less desirable, as there are going to be further interest rates later on. So it's complicated here. And I think that 45 days, I mean, I think county commissioners in their call back to in response to UMC already saying, yeah, maybe look at some other funding. And also, we really need an aggressive public education campaign if this were to come out. I'm sure that will primarily focus on what will the facilities do? Why do we need them? How this will help you and the children and the elderly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But just saying that, and this is why this makes the most sense right now, would probably quell a lot of those issues if they can indeed come up with it. That's going to take us through our next break right now. Coming out of this break, we got a few more comments on the line and talking more about, just that ever so fun subject of public expenditures, because this was not even the only multi-$100 million project that has come up at issue and discussion lately. The downtown arena, yes, roaring back into the news. We had talked about a meeting last week, some of the outcomes of it and some of the major focuses on it. Plus, of course, city manager salary. That wasn't going away anytime soon, and it's definitely back in the news. So we'll talk about that and a whole lot more coming out of this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Comments online, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either on Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, where you can find us and add your 2 cents. Plus, phone lines open in probably just a little bit, so stay tuned for all that and more. Here on News Radio 690 KTSM, we'll Talk El Paso. Don't go anywhere. I don't know if you've noticed, but I certainly have, that more people seem to be more outside lately, and not just as a, hey, I've been cooped up inside too long, but like actively choosing to recreate and be out and about, and not just like in their cars. The weather's been pretty nice lately, in between the raindrops, of course, and that ultimately, in my mind, leads to the idea of grilling. What can we get out and grill? Can we get the grill started? What is going to be the good weather for it? Because sure, grilling at 6 p.m., particularly with the full force of the sun in your eyes, may not be the best idea. With this nice weather we've been having, makes it a little bit more viable in any case. So let me tell you the tip that I use, the little secrets that might help you really ramp up your next cookout, is that of the great supply of ingredients from our friends over at Enhanced Flavors. That's enhancedflavors.com, or also find them out in the community. Seeing their full selection laid out in front of you and being able to sample all of it, it's truly the experience. And you can often be surprised, as I often am, anytime I get a chance to visit with them, Don Kovach and our friends over there, because they've got 40 plus balsamic vinegars, extra virgin olive oils, and flavored olive oils. Again, combinations that may surprise you. One of the ones I'm most excited to try coming up here is the El Paso Spicy Blend. Don't think it'll totally blow your socks off, but can really ramp it up and help spice up your life. If you want to blow your socks off, they've got that too. Do not worry. Their habanero blends can truly leave you with a very concrete memory of that occasion if you're into that kind of thing. Otherwise, they've just got great flavorful varieties that can really take it to the next level. So again, find them out at the community, often recently at the Country Club Farmers Market that happens Saturdays 10 to noon out there on Country Club Road, but also, of course, online at enhancedflavors.com. Enter that discount code at your next checkout. Get it delivered right to your door locally. You don't have to wait for something to come from overseas that may or may not. So again, to find them online and enter that code EF Radio, that's EF Radio at checkout to get 15% off your next order at enhancedflavors.com. That's enhancedflavors with a D.com.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. El Paso County Commissioners are considering a proposal to raise property taxes to be able to give the El Paso County Hospital District $346 million in certificates of obligation. The money would come from a rise in property taxes without going to voters. The money is needed for UMC and El Paso Children's Hospital to expand and enhance services. The hospital would have a minimum of 45 days to notify the public and get input if commissioners allow them to proceed. If it's approved, homeowners would see an increase of $30 a year for every $100,000 of their property valuation. And El Paso investigators are looking into what they call an in-custody death this morning in Northeast El Paso. Officials say police responded to a welfare check on a 36-year-old man on Dyer at a 7-Eleven by the Walmart. A spokesman with the El Paso Police Department says the man became aggressive with police and they were forced to use a taser, and he died in custody. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
No new crashes in El Paso traffic, but a lot of slowing on the I-10 westbound right now. The slowing starts I-10 westbound before Wrestler up to Red with 11-minute delays. Accident reported, airport northbound at Lee Fisher Boulevard. Take Airway or Cassidy Road instead. And police on the scene of an accident still at Montana Avenue eastbound at Rich Beam Boulevard. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We continue to deal with our active monsoon season as it is in full force, and that does mean we can pretty much expect to have every day some sort of shower or thunder activity. Although there will be somewhat of a lower chance as we get into the middle of the week, it will ramp up in time for the weekend. All the clouds and moisture, though, will keep us a bit on the cooler side.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. If summer is heating up your hiring needs, then you need Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates all in one place. Sponsor your first job and get hiring today by visiting Indeed.com/credit.
They're here, circling over your head, and are tracking you down. You feel overwhelmed, like you can't escape. You need a solution to get your back taxes filed, to put your life back on track. You need someone who can keep the vultures at bay and work directly with the IRS to leverage every opportunity to settle your debt. Edward Areola of United Financial Services is licensed to represent you before the IRS. Don't let the IRS threaten you. You should never need to speak to them directly. Edward does that for you. United Financial Services will help settle your entire IRS tax debt for up to 85% off the original amount owed, including penalties and interest if you qualify. United Financial Services, family owned in El Paso, can be a lifesaver for you. Call 915-500-3255, 915-500-3255, or go to UnitedFinancialEP.com. Call 915-500-3255 now.
If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. And that's why Discover matches all of the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply. This report is sponsored by Discover.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
Weather and traffic info. You need it? We have it. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed. News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to chime in on the show if you're so interested in doing so, including, of course, the various Facebook and other social media pages we're on here. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Really, Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Search us up on any of those platforms. You can be able to find us and add in your 2 cents. This is not to say that we have by any means forgotten our, shall we call it, terrestrial radio audience. Always been a weird term for me, but yeah, if you're listening to us in your car, in your traditional radio, shall we say, you're, of course, more than welcome to. And we'll be having those phone lines open here in just a bit. Also got some of the emails if you want to contact us that way, among other things. But, a lot of comments coming on these issues. Maria Coleman, John Browston, Kathy Codry, among others. Maria Coleman saying, does anyone in office consider the 40-year inflation residents are facing? Those on fixed incomes are struggling to meet current obligations, and many will be forced to move to more affordable areas. Homes have become the ATMs of the ruling class. Maybe it's time to change the rules and require bonds to go to the voters. Where did all the federal COVID funding go? Decent question, particularly on that last part. But I don't think that this is something that was really, it's outside the bounds of that, among other things. We're talking about expansion of facilities, including burn centers. So checking in with Estefania actually tweeting out that there actually has been the vote now within the last hour or so from county commissioners, voting 3-2 on the notice of intent to issue certificates of obligation, and expect to vote on the option of issuing those certificates of obligation not to exceed $400 million in the September 12th meeting. Voting against it were Commissioners Olguin and Stout, meaning that, of course, voting in favor in this case were Carlos Leon, Carl Robinson, and then County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. So that has indeed continuing to move forward. So that means, again, that timeline that has now been established, it was a 45-day minimum, but Stephanie further notes that is actually being asked for to be a 60-day process to allow there to be a whole lot more. Just looking through, if you want to go and check out her tweets on this, it would be a good way if you want to track the meeting yourself without having to watch the, again, to my understanding, still going on meeting. I would not fault you for not just totally locking into that. Having covered it myself in previous years, the fact that I would often have to be down there the whole day, yep, definitely still going on, and a nice, 7, give or take, hour experience with a brief break for lunch in there. I would not blame you for not going and being totally locked in for that whole time period. But she's got some interesting tweets on some of the public comment back and forth on it, including some names that might be ever so slightly recognizable here. Just reading off a few: Ray Adauto, Blanca Trout, Max Grossman, James Benato, and a whole lot more. So Fred Leoclio from, I believe, from, not sure if he's representing EPISD there, but no. In any case, yeah, a lot of public comment, and I'm sure this will continue to come up. At least some of the dissatisfaction seems to be coming in on lack of specificity on the communication plan coming out of UMC ahead of this vote. But again, at this moment, seeming to have passed, so we'll see what comes out of it. But of course, this is not even the only discussion about public expenditures that have, well, even happened in these last couple of weeks. The downtown arena, also known as the MPC, or Multi-Purpose Performing Arts and Entertainment Center. I still just think it was the MPC. But yeah, that is, quite the kerfuffle still going on. But there was that meeting at the end of last week that, in the wake of, shall we say, certain Supreme Court discussions, we super didn't really get into. I think I mentioned it sparely. That was about it. But that, again, the meeting held last week, going into some of the specifics, some of the comment back and forth. One of the more interesting points made, Anthony Jackson from the El Paso Times reporting on this headline there: City of El Paso still in the dark on cost for proposed downtown arena. Quoting Daniel Quesada, chief architect for the City of El Paso, in this meeting at the end of last week: we do have a project budget of approximately $158 million left in the project fund, but right now we do not have any cost estimates. We will be receiving cost estimates as part of the consultant's recommendations, which of course we will share with the public. So this has been noted by others, including some of those names we just mentioned, as a concerning factor of this, that the 2012 quality of life bond that's put this money into the public coffers, slightly, not exactly stark example, I'll say, but very illustrative example of the difference between public approved and non-public approved funds here, and the difference of certificates of obligation. And yes, one of the points apparently brought up, and I'm sure we'll get into this with the Stephanie this week as more information comes out, that there was a little bit of concern about the emergency or lack thereof nature of the UMC bond vote. But again, we're talking right now about the city and their movement with it, and a lot of public comment in that case. I mean, that wasn't entirely a public outreach meeting, was the purpose and the idea there. But some of the things that are still going to need to happen will begin those funds analyzing and what it'll actually cost to build the arena. Some advocates, both for and against in the area, pointing out that the cost estimates will be kind of key, because not only has, over the last decade, of course, whatever amount of money that was allocated through the bond projects, the $180 million sticks in my mind, but whatever it was has, of course, particularly lately with inflation, lost its purchasing power, meaning that if we want something of expanded capacity, essentially, that's the most reasonable argument I've heard, because if we're going to be building something on par with or smaller than any existing major facilities in town, having done some reporting on this in the past, essentially we have somewhat diverse facilities for performances in the area, but the outdoor nature of some of the larger one often stymies their potential to really have, well, big performances and acts. When you're going on a national tour, and the actual performance being one of the more key things required to make the money back on that, even missing one can sink a whole lineup. So even though we have places like McElligin Canyon and even, of course, the Sun Bowl, their outdoor nature. As much as we have beautiful weather here in El Paso, and I'd argue with anyone else against up and down that's not as much of a risk here, it still is. And sure, there might be underwriting, backing, insurance, essentially. If you can avoid it, most places do. So finding something that would be bigger than, say, primarily the Don Haskins Center would be, I think, what was in a lot of people's minds when voting on this item and this issue, making sure that, okay, yeah, we're going to fill in some gaps here, because once you get past the Don Haskins Center, you got then quite the bit of space disparity between that and the Sun Bowl capacity. So filling that would make sense. So if it was going to be smaller, again, I think people might be more opposed to that than not on the balance. So not being able to fill that, again, that's one of the major questions still coming out of it here. And a lot of comments coming in on the idea of spending money. But one other point I want to get here, Anthony Jackson, again, at the El Paso Times, quoting his reporting and his title here, El Paso City Manager Tommy Gonzalez's salary may near $600,000 by the end of contract in 2029. Really some interesting things focused on the city here recently. And essentially what he is saying in this article, that given the way the whole veto process and the contract negotiations happened, that whole City of Frisco incident, whether that would have been accepted or not, whether that pay was even commensurate with the current salary of the city manager, Tommy Gonzalez, is also a very relevant question. Essentially, most of the figures I've seen put that, again, the City of Frisco, in the $200,000 range. Well, of course, the current city manager of El Paso's salary is in the $400,000 range. So whether that is not reasonable or not to expect that he would have actually gone and taken that position is not an illegitimate point of discourse in my mind. But also the idea that in these contracts, it was notable that one of the initial ones did include essentially a cap up to $450,000. Now, this would have been a raise from what currently is in place to be achieved, and it wasn't exactly a firm cap and voyable cap, a truly, brick ceiling, because it would then be based on estimates and commiserate markets, essentially spanning from Phoenix to Dallas and kind of Albuquerque and all points in between, what are coming up with some averages and reasonable estimations therein. So $450,000 a year wasn't necessarily a very firm cap in my mind. But the point being here that since that cap or the consideration of it was removed, that there will still be that potential 5% step increase with each favorable evaluation every year, which has also been pointed out as of having happened every year since 2014. So if that were to continue, that $600,000 mark would be achievable. Does note some contact with Laura, the City of El Paso spokeswoman Laura Cruz Acosta, saying there are too many variables to be able to confirm the numbers, is what she is quoted in the article as saying. So, yeah, just a little bit of focus on public spending going on here at the end of last week and going into this week. And I'm sure that this will continue to be something that people are very interested in knowing what the heck is actually being spent on us here. A lot of comments coming in. And tell you what, we'll get to those and a whole lot more, plus those phone lines as we get into the next segment here. If you're wanting to chime in on the show, we'll go ahead and open up those. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking your El Paso traffic. Watch out for a crash on Gateway Boulevard, southbound at Dyer. It's blocking the right lane. Stay to the left. I-10 westbound at Sunland Park. Tractor trailer is blocking the right shoulder there. I-10 westbound before Wrestler up to Red. It is stop-and-go traffic with 11-minute delays. And police are on scene of a crash. Airport Boulevard northbound at Lee Fisher near the airport. Take Airway instead. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Discover. If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. And that's why Discover matches all of the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
With so many real estate agents to choose from, how do you find the best one? Hi, it's Glenn Beck. One key is just looking for the investment that an agent is willing to make to get your home sold. Brian Birds with eXp Realty and his team have a marketing budget 25 times higher than the average agent's annual income. This means your home gets maximum exposure because it's marketed to the widest possible audience and gets you the highest possible sales price. Brian is so confident in his ability to sell your home fast and for more money that he's willing to put his own money on the line. If your home doesn't sell at the price and deadline you agreed to, he'll buy it from you himself. You're not going to find another real estate agent in El Paso who is that invested in getting your home sold. He's the only one I'd call. Google Brian Birds. That's Brian, B-U-R-D-S. Read over 400 five-star reviews because I'm not the only one who knows you should call Brian Birds. Google Brian Birds or just check out brianbirds.com.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is the leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
Are you a safe driver? Are you looking to save money? With DriveWise from Allstate, the safer you drive, the more you can save. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
This message is for all of you sitting in the passenger seat. And apologies if it gets a little uncomfortable, but how does it feel to be at the mercy of someone who thinks a random text is more important than your life? Someone who takes their eyes off the road while speeding along in a 3-ton hunk of steel. Freaky, right? Well, why not just ask them to stop? Or better yet, volunteer to text for them. It might be a little awkward, but believe me, you'll live.
Learn more at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to get at the show, particularly since we got those phone lines open at this point, as we usually do. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Keeping that open through the rest of the show because, we brought up ever so slightly a few important issues. Subheadline, public spending is a decent way to do it, even if we're talking about a lot of different issues, even within that subheadline. So, again, if you wanted to call in there, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in online here. John Browsland saying a little bit earlier, El Paso may need a statewide Proposition 13 on property taxes to hold down increases on previously passed in California. Yeah, referring to that California law that does impose some restrictions on how things can be moved. I mean, we do have some, particularly, essentially the rollback tax rate it's not a limit on how much taxes can be raised, but anything more than a certain percentage, I want to say it's 5%, though I guess I haven't looked that up in a minute. That's what sticks in my mind. Anyway, after that, it immediately goes on the ballot. So it's effectively a ban on anything over that, because who's really willing to do it unless they have one hell of a reason? And I haven't heard a hell of a reason like that yet here. But let's go back to those phone lines right now. Again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Guadalupe Hiner on the line here with us right now. Guadalupe, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Doing all right there. What's on your mind?
Well, I want to talk about UMC and the certificates of obligation. But before that, I want to just let your listeners know that we have already turned everything in that we needed in a timely way to get on the ballot in November. And I do have a letter from the county elections that they've received everything they needed and the Texas state required. So we will be on the ballot in November, November the 8th, for running as El Paso County Judge.
As an independent, again, as noted, and as the requirements are here in Texas, interestingly enough.
Yes.
Okay. So on the UMC issue, then, what are you wanting to say?
Well, obviously you've talked, and I've heard other people talk about how this all they went about it. I mean, we would not have even known until it was actually on the agenda for the Commissioner's Court had it not been for that leaked audio that we heard. And El Paso News, I think it's Martin Paredes, he actually published that. And thank goodness for that. Otherwise, we would have just been finding out today or a few days earlier. And, you know, the thing with UMC is that in the Texas Constitution, it does allow county government to provide indigent care. And it allows the county to form what they call a hospital district, which is the UMC. The problem that I see is that UMC now has 12 different locations across the county. And I don't think that was the intention of the Texas Constitution when they read it. I mean, they are basically competing with private hospitals. And so that's a problem in itself. Number one, and I mentioned this on your show when I was on the last time, the trend is to move away from big, huge buildings. You can take the medicine to people in a rolling kind of truck and have them get some medical care and then, you know, guide them to a facility if they need additional testing and things like that. UMC instead builds bigger and bigger and bigger buildings. And you have to keep in mind that the county is not growing. Every estimate that we look at shows it staying the same or slightly declining. So where are all these patients that they claim to be having and they need to create more capacity? Where are they coming from? I don't know. I'd like to see that data. And I will tell you that I was just reading, and Ken Paxton made this statement that there's about $600 to $700 million of uncompensated medical care in Texas. And it's for people that are coming here illegally. So if we're making space and capacity for something that is not allowed in the Texas Constitution, then I think our county commissioners, and especially the county judge, need to take a second look and say, hey, you know, our taxpayers can't do this anymore. But instead, it's all about growing bigger and bigger instead of saying, hey, you know what, let's find ways to cut costs. And then one of your listeners commented on where is that COVID money? Well, the county of El Paso just got $80 million in COVID money. And you could send that to UMC, but instead they're applying it to different areas. 12 million of that they're using to administer the rest of the 70 million, and they're on par to get another 80 million from the federal government. So there's a lot of money pouring into all our government. And I just don't feel like it's been getting used well. They're on the spending spree. And even then, they still want to raise our taxes for something that I just think is out of control. Now, we do have good UMC, and I can tell you, I talk to people, and they do get good care at UMC. But it's got to stop. And the taxpayer is yelling, screaming at the top of their lungs, we can't do this anymore. And nobody is listening. Not the city, not the county. I mean, it is just out of control. I've never seen this. And people are scared. They're afraid they're going to lose their homes due to these increases in taxes. And so I just want to tell your listeners, there's an option. You have an option. You got to vote for someone that is going to do some things differently and better. Because if you keep voting for the same people, whether it's county government or city government, nothing is going to change because they don't care. Your tax money to them is just money. And it needs to become something where they say they take care of it. And they say, this is important. This is taxpayer dollars. We don't want to tax people more. They're paying more for gas. They're paying more for utilities. Let's stop this now. Let's see how we can help the taxpayer. And I don't hear that in any of the county commissioner meetings. They're all talking about bigger, more hiring, more adding of buildings, more is just insane. And I just don't see that our message as taxpayers is being heard.
I mean, there's definitely a lot to get into there. So we're going to have to hit that next break right now. So Guadalupe, thank you very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, but we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get more into this. I mean, there are some more points to make here on this, even just some of the tweets coming out from Estefania. A lot more comments and more calls. Again, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking your El Paso traffic. Watch out for a crash on Gateway Boulevard, southbound at Dyer. It's blocking the right lane. Stay to the left. I-10 westbound at Sunland Park. Tractor trailer is blocking the right shoulder there. I-10 westbound before Wrestler up to red. It is stop-and-go traffic with 11-minute delays. And police are on scene of a crash. Airport Boulevard northbound at Lee Fisher near the airport. Take Airway instead. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day and a half. You informed traffic and weather all day. El Paso News Radio 690 KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Chris Coraggio. Reports say there are multiple fatalities and dozens are injured after an Amtrak train derailed in Missouri. The train derailed after it hit a dump truck at a public crossing in the town of Minden, which is about 100 miles northeast of Kansas City. Social media pictures show several cars on their sides, and there were reports people were trapped and needed to be rescued. The January 6th House Committee was supposed to hold off on any additional hearings until sometime next month, but this morning, in a surprise announcement, the committee said it would hold another public hearing tomorrow. A statement from the panel says it'll focus on recently obtained evidence and witness testimony. It's not known who the witness or witnesses will be. The hearing is set for 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Wall Street is closing lower following last week's market rebound. Stocks sank in the afternoon trading after stronger than expected durable goods data. Shares in Spirit Airlines fell 8% after the company said it would accept the latest takeover bid from Frontier Group. At the closing bell, the Dow Jones fell 62 points. The S&P 500 lost 11 points. The NASDAQ dropped 83 points. The California State Legislature is moving quickly on a proposed constitutional amendment that would explicitly protect abortion and contraception in California.
We will not be shoved back into the dark days of desperate decisions. Abortion is healthcare, plain and simple, and the decision to have one lies solely with the patient. California will not leave people vulnerable.
Senator Tony Atkins joined state, county, and city leaders in San Diego today to support Constitutional Amendment 10. California is already a leader in protecting reproductive freedom and services for women, but these officials want it spelled out. State lawmakers are expected to vote Monday. The measure would then go on the November ballot. The world is horrified by Russia's missile strike on a Ukrainian mall. That's what Secretary of State Antony Blinken tweeted. He called it the latest in a string of atrocities. 10 people have died and at least 40 others were injured. Ukrainian President Zelensky said about 1,000 people were thought to have been inside at the time of the attack. I'm Chris Coraggio, NBC News Radio. Alec Baldwin is interviewing movie director Woody Allen tomorrow. The Long Island native announced on social media last night that he will be interviewing the controversial filmmaker on Instagram Live at 10:30 a.m. Eastern.
Woody Allen. Oh, I love you, Woody. Instagram Live with Woody.
Allen has received backlash after his adopted daughter, Dylan Farrow, claimed she was sexually abused by him when she was a child. Baldwin wrote that he could care less about what anybody thinks. RIMPAC 2022 starts on Wednesday. The Rim of the Pacific exercise, which happens every other year, will feature 25,000 military personnel from 26 countries. There will be 38 surface ships, 4 submarines, and more than 170 aircraft taking part in simulated battle scenarios. RIMPAC runs through August 4th in and around the Hawaiian Islands, in addition to Southern California. There are more than a dozen new members of the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Museum's Hall of Fame. The class of 22 inducted late last week includes Olympic swimmers Michael Phelps and Natalie Coughlin, soccer player Amia Hamm, figure skater Michelle Kwan, and skier Lindsey Vonn. Para-athletes inducted include skier and cyclist Muffy Davis, skier and basketball player David Kiley, and swimmer Trisha Zorn Hudson. 2 teams were also inducted, the 1976 women's 4x100 freestyle relay team and the 2022 Paralympic sled hockey team. Dave Grohl is back on stage. Paul McCartney surprised the audience at Glastonbury over the weekend by bringing out the Foo Fighters frontman during his headlining set. It marked Grohl's first live performance since the sudden death of bandmate Taylor Hawkins back in March. Sir Paul and Dave performed the Beatles' I Saw Her Standing There and Wings' Band on the Run before being joined by another legend, Bruce Springsteen. The Boss and McCartney reprised their performance of Glory Days and I Want to Be Your Man from McCartney's New Jersey concert earlier this month. The trio closed out the former Beatles set together by performing the Fab Fours, The End. I'm Chris Coraggio, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Bills. That's Bills. Enter it now.
Make this the year you go to our iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Tickets are on sale now at AXS.com.
iHeartRadio, let's go! A weekend full of superstar performances, never seen before collaborations, and once-in-a-lifetime moments you'll have to see to believe.
Friday, September 23rd and Saturday the 24th at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas.
Our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Buy your tickets now at AXS.com.
This report is sponsored by Discover. If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. And that's why Discover matches all of the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. Less than 1% of water on Earth is drinkable, and humans are using it faster than nature can replenish it. Reduce the amount of water you use in the bathroom by taking shorter showers and turning the water off while you brush your teeth. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to tune in, be part of the show, add your 2 cents, commentary, all the ways that I think discussions are supposed to take the shape of. If you want to call in, we do have that phone line open right now. That number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in over on the social media. Our various pages up right now. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso. The Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube. Twitter at Talk El Paso. Or Twitch.tv. Andrew J. Polk. No, there's not a quiz on where we're up. But if you ever want to find a way to get at us, add your commentaries. At least someone mentioned recently that they needed to look and explore some alternates. Listen. We don't care what you've done as long as you're abiding by our few very simple rules of mostly just not swearing constantly or ever on the phone line. That's a very important one, and one that, let's just say I don't have any options in that case. It's either we dump that or we dump the show, and I know what I'm voting for, so with my finger on the button, we know what's going to happen there. But a lot of commentary coming in. John Browslin, Kathy Codry, Maria Coleman, and more also dropping those likes and reacts. Ed Clore, Robert Haynes, Flaco Jimenez, Michael Robert Tipton, Robbie Flores, and Monica Cervantes. Some of the ones I want to get back to here. Kathy Codry saying, in my opinion, this is not the time to burden the property owners with higher taxes at this point. And John Browson saying the primary purpose of local and state politicians, especially Democrats, is to spend money, especially if the money doesn't belong to them, he goes on to say. And Maria Coleman saying if they continue to raise property taxes, who will have the extra funds to attend functions at the multi-purpose center, referring there to the again, that downtown arena proposal. Kathy Codry also pointing out that water and electric rates increased this year. Yeah, and RJ saying in the ever so slightly radio appropriate way, I appreciate it. Blank or get off the pot and build it. We will come. 18 to 25,000 capacity, a minimum. That would be my range of expectation. At least, okay, I'm going to say I want at least 15,000 because one of those kind of mildly conspiracy theory things out there that the way the Don Haskins Center got built happened to be just under the limit of what would be allowable for, like, say, NCAA quarterfinals. So it just wasn't quite allowed there. There's a little bit more when you get into the building of the Don Haskins Center and the renaming of Texas Western College in the aftermath of the 1966 NCAA championship. But that's a whole nother show here, but a lot more comments coming in that way. So if you wanted to chime in over there, Michael Pattis, among others, saying, wonder what percentage of the people treated at UMC do not pay, further broken down to U.S. residents and residents of Mexico. I know that there are some uncompensated care figures out there in the order of tens of millions, if not more, as far as I'm aware. But Flaco Jimenez saying, yes, find ways to cut costs, run the county and city like a business. Also, Robbie Flores agreeing with that as well. And then Marky Mandingo saying we're running out of money, and 400,000 annually is the way I'm going to choose to read his comment. He wakes up and says, "Yeah, yes, a few times and goes home. Pretty good gig." I think referring there to the city manager. So yeah, a lot of different points coming in here and some more comments. So if you wanted to chime in over there, you're welcome to do so. But let's go back to those phone lines right now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I was watching CNN's State of the Union yesterday with Jake Tapper, and he had a nice little conversation with Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister. And it was kind of an interesting conversation because one of the things he said, do the Greenies believe in nuclear energy?
Well, depending on what kind of green you're talking about, but in general, if you're talking about like the whole Green New Deal, like that subset, to my understanding, and I do not pretend to speak for that group, my understanding is no.
They're too dangerous, right? We couldn't possibly build a nuclear reactor.
I think that potentially, primarily, they focus on the renewables, and at the very least, it's not part of their conversation, even if it's not like out and out avowed, we don't like that.
Well, Boris Johnson just said yesterday that the UK is going to build a nuclear reactor every year now on. Why can't we build nuclear reactor? I mean, if they can, and they're supposed to be the greenest of green, why can't we build nuclear reactors to help our energy situation?
I mean, I'm personally in favor of it, though, of course, there's a couple of public perception items, including, of course, the NIMBY, not in my backyard, or as much as I loved the miniseries Chernobyl, it was a great view into both the operation there and, dramatized to a bit, but functioning of the Soviet Republic at that point. But I think those combination of things, and then, of course, the real-world incidents, and, of course, including 3 Mile Island, have it would take quite the PR campaign, I think, to make that more palatable here in the U.S.
Well, Boris Johnson said that it was actually a requirement of the UK to build these things because to answer the energy problem that we've got going. Okay, and another thing that he said is that it is the responsibility of the United States to help out Ukraine, just like how we saved the world in World War I and World War II. It is the responsibility of the United States to be the savior of the world again. And also, he said, he was talking about how it's the responsibility of the United States to fund everything. It turns out that the European Union and the International Monetary Fund has estimated Ukraine's balance of payments gap to the European Union is about 14.3 billion euros. Your European Union and others, these aren't gifts they're giving to them. They expect Ukraine to pay this back. And do they expect does the United States expect to get paid back?
To my understanding, no. I think when we're talking about particularly military aid, it's, I guess, not knowing the exact description and technical legal wrangling that are happening in these funding bills that have been coming out. My assumption has, from everything I've seen, that these are very much in the same vein that, say, funding to, say, Israel has been happened previously, except for a lot more specific materiel than just, checks being sent over in this case.
Yeah, we've spent, $54 billion and counting.
Sounds about right.
And the European Union now has a balance sheet of 14.3 billion euros. Where's their responsibility to help their countries support some kind of military resistance to the Russians?
I mean, there's a little bit of priorities to be sorted out there as it is already. I mean, the fact that most of the major European countries, Germany chief among them, still hasn't totally gotten off of the Russian supply of gasoline, natural gas specifically, and more specifically, that they are, given the aggressiveness of the Russian regime, not thinking like, oh no, it'll be fine. Like, I'm sure they won't use this as a mildly offensive weapon on us. I mean, if I was finding myself through any magical circumstances the chancellor of Germany at this point, I would be like, yeah, that's job number one at this point, / funneling as much as is otherwise available to Ukraine to keep the fight over there instead of within our borders.
Yeah, and Germany's they've loaned $1 billion to the Ukraine effort, and that means money also to reimburse countries for taking refugees. So, I mean, we're giving all this military money from our country to the Ukraine, and all these other people are not doing anything. So, I mean, isn't it about time that our administration starts looking at what this is doing to our people?
Oh, absolutely. That should always be a focus here. Though, I mean, I guess in a way it makes sense because doing anything beyond supporting Ukraine wouldn't make just a whole lot of sense for, well, this current administration. Because if Russia were to roll over it, even as much as the outcome of this is still a little bit up in the air in my mind, anything less would be, I think, catastrophic, both politically, geopolitically, and for any international relations purpose.
And last night on the news, they said that the people in Sudan, because of this war that we're waging with Russia over one of the most corrupt governments in the United States, in the world, I mean, in the world,
right?
Ukrainian government, because of this war, these people are starving to death. And
yep.
It's going to spread throughout Africa and throughout most of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that this incident, I mean, we've talked a lot about supply chain issues. This incident, I don't necessarily think will cause any shortages here, or set of incidents, ongoing situation, the better way to describe it, will cause any shortages here. It may cause further increases in prices because shortage in one area means that prices will go up in the other areas that still do have it. But yeah, a lot of the grain that comes out of Ukraine and all those areas definitely usually went straight to, well, Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, and those places. So I don't think, and they were expecting those harvests to be impacted for potentially the next few years. Like the current harvest that's on the field is not really getting picked up. They're not really interested in planting the next one. So as much as it relates here to home, I don't expect any, I mean, we've had companies in the U.S. say that essentially we are expecting there to be more increases in prices. I mean, Kraft, among many other big national companies. So what you're going to be seeing on the shelves here in the Borderland, probably can expect some more price increases to go on for, at the very least, the rest of the year is what is directly being stated and anticipated. But how long that will actually go on, that's I would expect, at least based on the Ukraine situation, probably the next 3 years.
How much more time and money are we going to spend to get all this misery in the United States and throughout the world? I think this is on the backs of the U.S. government. They wanted this war. We got this war, and now we got to learn to live with this war. And one more thing, let's go, Brandon.
All right. Well, thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. You have a good one.
Thank you.
I mean, I as much as I am also, I mean, blank checks are sending out from the U.S. government to any other entity or even within the U.S. government. It's never something that I'm totally like, yeah, no, there could never be any problems with that. But I got to just, in this case, specifically imagine what would the alternative be if there were to suddenly be no, we're not supporting you anymore, and Russia does roll over, or even if the Ukrainians then do manage to fight it to a standstill, I think would be about the only outcome in that case. What would that mean either domestically, internationally? Like, there's just, the alternative is basically, I think, the reason that this line of reasoning keeps going forth, because the alternative is almost unconscionable. Let's take one more quick call before we hit that next break of the hour here right now. Do have a call on the line here right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Raul.
Hey there, Raul. What's on your mind?
Oh, we have inflation like we've never had that before. You know, I recall 2 CPA home buyers I sold a home to back in 1980, and they borrowed some second lien money at 17% to make that deal happen. And they figured that they would refinance it later on. They were smart guys. Now, back in 1980, inflation rate hit 13.55%. And that was primarily due to OPEC and the Arab oil embargo back then. Oh, and one of the world's leading fossil fuel sources, Russia, invaded Ukraine. And the free world isn't buying Russian oil. Damn, Brandon. Oh, and we were stricken with a once-in-a-lifetime global pandemic that killed 1 million Americans. Oh, and we had race riots in American cities, sparked by police brutality and economic desperation, like we've never had that before either. Oh, and we've had periodic waves of illegal immigrants into the country, like we've never had that before either. If only the wall was built, that wouldn't be happening. Oh, and we had more school massacres and mass shootings throughout the country, like we've never had that happen before either. And that's just life in the America that Trump didn't make great again. And tomorrow, unprecedented, big history, an abruptly announced congressional commission's hearing on Trump's failed coup. And one of my newest heroes now is the chairman of the January 6th Congressional Commission, Congressman Benny Thompson. He's really impressed me, and as he must have had Speaker Pelosi, who probably put him in that position. And his opening statement was powerful and soulful. You know, you couldn't be more wrong, Andrew, if you think that Trump isn't guilty of having orchestrated an elaborate scheme to make himself a dictator.
I mean, I'm not going to outright agree with you on that phrase, but I'm also going to say I've never actually said that phrase that I disagree with it. What I have very specifically called for, I'd like to think that I more often than not choose my words carefully, is the idea that I support a full investigation into this. But if you're going to say that this is the investigation, even as you're quoting here from the politicians involved in it, you think that this is truly what would be considered a dispassionate, fact-seeking investigation? Doesn't that bucket doesn't hold water. That's about as holy as a sieve right there, because they are immediately, I mean, obviously it's not even something that is being tried to be obfuscated. I don't think any argument can be made that there is a political purpose here. That has never been not at issue. And sure, I've been paying attention to them obviously and taking them in stride, but there's a reason usually when the phrase is about, wait, what's going on with that investigation? The phrase for an actual investigation is, we do not comment on ongoing investigations, with the subtext being for fear of tainting the outcome of it and not being able to truly get to the bottom of it. This is not the same process. Now, I'm not saying it's inherently flawed because of that, but if you're truly saying that this is the same as that, that's just not even technically correct here. And saying that, oh, well, we've had inflation before, it kind of feels like you've been hit in the face before, you've been taking a punch before. Why does this car crash and hurt you so bad? It's the same basic forces at play here. Why is this so much worse for you? Like, if that's really the sentiment and line we're taking here, I'm not even sure we're talking the same language anymore, to be perfectly honest with you, because sure, we've had higher inflation. We've also had riots previous generations happening on the streets of the United States because of very bad conditions. So saying that, it's been bad before, we can handle this, like, sure, I have faith that we will make it through this, but I also think that this is going to require serious issues and serious action on the part of hopefully some qualified people, but I'm wondering where the qualifications will come from necessarily. So, of course, entitled to your opinion on it here, but I think we're having some not clarity use of what we're talking about in each part here. So thank you for the point in the call. Tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this next break, we'll get to more of the calls, more of the comments, more of everything we do at this point during the show. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. If you want to get on the line, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more. Stay tuned. If you are wondering about, again, this weather been beautiful and or wet lately, about, well, taking care of yourself, good grooming, if you're looking, thinking about getting that summer cut finally, Got mine a few weeks ago. Due for the next one over from the official hair and beard sponsor of the show, Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon and Men's Spa. Got to get my appointment on the schedule here because we're getting a little bit long. Got to get the ears lowered before too long. And if you want to get it for yourself, of course, we congratulate our winners from the Father's Day giveaway. Make sure to check your email. If you haven't seen it already, we'll send out another reminder here so you can claim it. But also, they're, of course, available any time of the year for you. So give them a call at 915-532-3000. That's 915-532-3000, 3000. Or find them online at gentsrepublic.com. That's GENTS Republic.com, because they've got all the services available for you. I go there for expert hair and beard styling. Plus, of course, their complimentary beverage of your choice here. Whether you like the low or high octane versions, it's definitely red beer season, so I'm expecting that's what I'll get next time I go in there. Ready for me right at the door. Great experience. Truly, you deserve to get treated, or the important man in your life, like a king for a day. And find them again, gentsrepublic.com or 915-532-3000.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso traffic this afternoon still seeing slowing on the 10 westbound from Wrestler to Red with 5-minute delays. Gateway Boulevard southbound at Dyer, that crash is cleared up. All lanes back open. Piedras north of Paisano at Cypress Avenue. Accident reported there. You could take Alameda Avenue as your alternate. And an accident reported Kenworthy just south of the 54 Gateway at Lucy Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Discover. If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. And that's why Discover matches all of the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is a leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
You know when you see a great deal on the phone and then you find out it's not for you? Not at Verizon.
They just gave us all a new iPhone 13.
So we both got the same great deal.
Yep.
Get iPhone 13 on us with select trade-in and 5G unlimited plans for every customer. Current, new, everyone. To show the love. Only from Verizon. $799.99, 128 gigabytes only. Device payment purchase with new or upgrade smartphone line required. Less up to $800 trade-in/promo credit applied over 36 months. 0% APR. Trade-in conditions apply.
My doctor told me my blood pressure is borderline. I figured I could worry about it or do something about it. So I took control with Garlic Healthy Blood Pressure Formula. It works safely and naturally to help maintain healthy blood pressure with a custom blend of garlic, vitamins, and minerals. And it's odor-free. I'm taking charge with Garlic Healthy Blood Pressure Formula.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
Welcome back to the Dog Show. Up next, we have Satchmo. Satchmo is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right, a group known especially for their couch snuggling, ball chasing, face licking, and of course, companionship. Now, let's see him in action.
Look how he makes eye contact with his person.
That's actually known as the treat stare.
How intuitive, and now he appears to be excitedly turning in circles.
Ah, the happy dance will come in with this group.
But really, the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Satchmo is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke. I couldn't speak or walk.
This is high blood pressure. Get back on your plan. Go to loweryourhbp.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days. A lot of comments coming in there that way, and a lot of calls can come in through the phone line as well. Not quite full up at the moment, but if you want to squeeze in that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. One of the more specific questions getting asked to me, Kathy Codry asking, did I see what happened where Pelosi elbowed Representative Flores' daughter during a photo op? Yeah, I'd seen it go by on Twitter, looked it up here. I'm not saying that I think it was necessarily malicious, but I will also say I have my issues with Nancy Pelosi, and being considered the queen of tact is not a title I would necessarily give her. So, yeah. Michael Batt is also on the energy situation, saying European countries are firing up coal plants. Again, whatever your goals are, whatever you want to achieve in the future, realities in the moment are certainly something that have to be considered as we get there. And about fuel prices and the issues with them, yeah, a lot of commentary on some of these issues. Maria Comment saying, among others, many major economists agree and have written there is one major creator of inflation, and that is the government. And Eric von Holstein-Rathlau saying, we were at war in the Middle East for 20 years until Brandon surrendered to the Taliban and didn't seem to cause a global economic crisis. But Russia invades Ukraine and the whole world suffers massive inflation. The ruble is the strongest currency right now. If we produce petroleum products at a pace that outdid Russia, the ruble would fall and the dollar would strengthen. I mean, I will say there is a ever so slight difference between the economic output of Afghanistan than to Russia or Ukraine, either way. But, I mean, yeah, there are certain things that I just don't buy whenever it comes to the conversation that, well, no, it's only because of the bad things that happen, not because of anything that anyone actually has control over, which is also not exactly the point I think you want to be making in that case. You're saying, oh, no, we have no control over anything. So clearly there's no one to be blamed for this because we're just rudderless on the high seas here. Who could be to blame for that? Like, that's not the point I think that people who go along with the line of argument realize they're making, but that's the one that's taken away from it. Anyway, let's go back to those phone lines right now. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We have Tony on the west side here with us right now. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. Normally when our friend Hater from the Northeast calls, I take a bathroom break and say, but this time I went ahead and I turned on my liberal translator Model 1000 that I got at Black Friday's on sale. It was a liquidation sale.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to play back or read back to you what my liberal translator translated after our friend from the Northeast called, sometimes referred to as our patient from the Northeast. And it basically said, translated to this, and I read as follows. Basically, people ought to be grateful that we have a president who finally brought back some of the worst times we've ever had in history. So I find that kind of interesting that that's the summation of the call from our friend from the Northeast. So anyway, if anybody's interested, they're only $8 at Black Fridays. These liberal translators, they're coming quite in handy if you can't stomach listening to people directly. Thank you, Andrew.
Sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call there. Do appreciate it. Interesting device there. Be very interested to know the brand name on that. I mean, to say that we've had it worse in the past and therefore we should be grateful now, I'm not going to say it's totally like abuser logic, but it's definitely along the lines of be grateful for what you have. Drink up, kids in Africa are going thirsty. I don't know. It's a little bit circular logic for my taste here, because I think there are substantive things that could be done by this administration, but a lack of willingness to do so, among many other things. I mean, topic that I'm sure will come up at some point this week, immigration, among others. Yeah, that comes to mind for me. But really, the idea of the investigation, some more comments coming in here as well. Raul commenting back, the investigation that I want is highly likely to happen when the DOJ and AG announce it. I would be very interested when that announcement comes. But putting the committee hearings before the investigation seems a little bass-ackwards to me, I'll say here. Let's get at least to one more call on the line here. Again, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Frankie and Messia with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
All right. I said this before. I think these three nut jobs on the Supreme Court, Gorsuch, Cayman Crud, and that Coney Island, what's her name, they need to be impeached. Now, they will get impeached in the lower house. No question about it. The trouble is they won't get convicted in the Senate. That's just the way it goes. But I will love it. I will be laughing my derriere off because they will have it on their record as being impeached. Three of them in a row. I love it. They will go down in history as the only 3 Supreme Court justices on their resume, and what kind of a legacy would that be? I ask you, Andrew, I ask you, Kevin, I ask you, Awful Andrew, and the rest of the crowd out there, you're going to tell me that these people got out there and swore, put their hand up, swore an oath. It's perjury. It's criminal. They need to be impeached. That's what I want to say.
I mean, okay, understand your position on there, though. One technical note to make for you, there was the previous impeachment of a Supreme Court justice in 1801, Samuel Chase, along, well, honestly, very similar bounds of political bounds. One that was, I think that was that during a Jefferson time in office? Anyway, it may have come out of his appointments in any case. And it was that, yeah, we don't want this person in that office anymore, and obviously we can't vote him out. So impeachment was pursued and ultimately discarded, acquitted by the Senate in that case. So yes, I'm aware AOC and others have been calling for that, but I'm not sure that that's going to, even if, okay, let's assume that it goes through and they do end up being impeached and end up being acquitted, as very much likely seems a possibility. I'm not sure that will be the own you expect it to be, because they still then serve for life. Like, that literally has no impact on. They're not worried about re-election in that case. So, like, sure, if you want to put a mark on their record, that's one thing, but it doesn't seem like there's even an expectation on your part of anything substantive out of that.
I'm okay with that black mark being on their record. Come on, Andrew, and everybody else out there. You're a Supreme Court justice. You are elevated to the nth degree in the United States of America democracy. And to go through life 20 years, 25, 30 years, and have that mark on your record, I don't think I would like that as a Supreme Court justice. I would hang my head in shame, quit, and go find some place to dig my conservative coot face in the ground. That's what I would do.
Okay, well, thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
All right, bye.
I mean, sure, if that's the way you feel about it. Okay, I'll put it this way. I don't expect that is what, at the very least, this administration will actually look at doing. I think more likely than not, they're probably going to look at some level of executive action that probably affecting how, like, the AG goes after it. Essentially, the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, deals with it in the aftermath of this, like a non-enforcement, those lines of things. Because the other two actually substantive avenues I also see as unlikely at this point, of either putting forth legislation or the whole packing of the court thing. It's more complicated than that, but that's the phrase that seems to have been settled upon. I mean, there is the whole idea of an actual constitutional amendment, but if you thought that any other amount of legislation was going to be hard, particularly in this lead up to the midterm elections, I mean, I've never lived through in my political life, anyway, being aware of politics, a constitutional effort to actually have an amendment changed or added. So I don't even know what that would look like in this day and age, to be perfectly honest with you. So doubt that will be coming up soon here. We got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break here, we got a lot more that we'll get to here and more calls in the line. If you're wanting to chime in yourself, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. El Paso County Commissioners are considering a proposal to raise property taxes to be able to give the El Paso County Hospital District $346 million in certificates of obligation. The money would come from a rise in property taxes without going to voters. The money is needed for UMC and El Paso Children's Hospital to expand and enhance services. The hospital would have a minimum of 45 days to notify the public and get input if commissioners allow them to proceed. If it's approved, homeowners would see an increase of $30 a year for every $100,000 of their property valuation. And El Paso investigators are looking into what they call an in-custody death this morning in Northeast El Paso. Officials say police responded to a welfare check on a 36-year-old man on Dyer at a 7-Eleven by the Walmart. A spokesman with the El Paso Police Department says a man became aggressive with police and they were forced to use a taser, and he died in custody. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Checking your El Paso commute times. Traffickers are reporting cones on I-10 westbound, restricting the right lane and slowing with delays there. I-10 westbound Wrestler to red, 11-minute delays. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Chelsea, injury accident. Police still on the scene of a crash. Airport Boulevard northbound at Lee Fisher, and a crash reported Lee Trevino Drive southbound at Rojas. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We continue to deal with our active monsoon season as it is in full force, and that does mean we can pretty much expect to have every day some sort of shower or thunder activity. Although there will be somewhat of a lower chance as we get into the middle of the week, it will ramp up in time for the weekend. All the clouds and moisture, though, will keep us a bit on the cooler side.
This report is sponsored by Discover. If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. And that's why Discover matches all of the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. And that's why Discover matches all of the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply. This report is sponsored by Discover.
In 2007, Marine First Lieutenant Travis Manion was killed in Iraq after saving his wounded teammates. Travis's legacy lives on through the words he spoke before his final deployment. If not me, then who? Words that today fuel the spirit of Travis Manion Foundation. And through TMF, these words can live in you too. Show the world what you're made of, because character is invisible until it's not. Find out how you can strengthen the character of your community alongside empowered veterans, families of the fallen, and inspired civilians at travismanion.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to chime in on the show, even as we're getting close enough to the end here. That phone number, again, if you want to squeeze in, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We also do have a lot of interesting comments going on, including Richard Lewis commenting on the nature of our comments, or callers, I guess you're supposed to specifically say. Again, just as an open overture, there's no, club, there's no list, there's no anything you have to do to call in besides call in. That number again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We definitely have some people that may be somewhat familiar names at this point, but I also will fully say anyone willing to put themselves out there and comment on our situations and add their 2 cents and not hide behind anonymity. I'm not saying necessarily that we don't like our comments, but anyone willing to put themselves out there, I have a level of regard for, and so we'll keep doing it. But it's literally open to anyone, as long as you can get on the line. If it's full up, I got nothing for you there. That's just the nature of the beast. But if you want to get on there, you're more than welcome to. So just keep that in mind here, as we have a lot of, again, interesting comments going on. And again, those dropping those reacts, we appreciate. Calvin Williams, Ed Clore, Robert Haynes, Blanco Jimenez, Michael Robert Tipton, Robbie Flores, and Monica Cervantes. Let's get back to those phone lines here real quick. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. You have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, taxes and proposed increase by the county.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely one of the ones that I'm sure we'll be talking more about this week. But with some of those initial numbers coming out, it looks like, if I'm understanding what came out of this meeting correctly, that the countdown has begun to the potential issuance of that out of that vote today.
Yes, but yet we're finding money for housing undocumented immigrants, and inflation being at a 40-year high, which Raul did not mention that.
Again, yeah, that kind of the idea of, well, it's been bad before, so you shouldn't cry about it now. Is like, yo, your house burned down, mine got rolled over by lava, you shouldn't complain. Like, it doesn't work as reasoning for this day. Like, things can be bad in a lot of different ways and still be bad in their own right immediately.
Yes, if you don't feel it, if you have the money to weather the storm, yeah, that's fine for you. But other people are suffering out there, and I see it every day. I see what people like myself and Tony go through just to help people get a good meal out there. And believe me, I'll tell you this much, guys: I spend more on tips than a lot of people pay in taxes. So you guys may think this is transitory, but no. If it's hitting your pocketbook, it ain't feeling good.
And again, the way that people will then just make those decisions, we talked a lot about in the midst of the pandemic, at the height of it, I guess I should say, since it's probably going to linger on the immediate response for a while, about how consumer confidence is not just something you can declare back. It's going to come back in discrete intervals or be lost in discrete intervals. And it feels like this may be going back for a different reason now. People just not even having faith in the market itself or the availability of funds. And if we're in that kind of a situation, the phrase stagflation has come up a lot more than I am at all comfortable with lately. But again, recognizing reality, that is a potential.
Yes, sir. Now, as for foolish Frankie out there, and impeaching Supreme Court justices, there's only been 15 federal judges impeached over the course of the history of the United States, and 8 of them were only removed from office. Now, it calls for during their term. The way I read the law, anything before that pretty much doesn't fly.
Again, there's the whole high crimes and misdemeanors thing, and yes, lying to under oath has certainly been an impeachable offense before, but that is an interesting delineation you make there that I think would apply here definitely as well. The idea of a difference of before or during in office. I mean, the political output and the reason this is even in the discourse is pretty obvious. Again, I fully expect that the most substantive thing we will see probably before the election will be some form of executive order, because anything else is, well, increasing levels of political fraughtness come along with it.
Yes. Well, and of course, these justices were pressured to give responses like no other justices before or candidates. And let me tell you something, guys. It's not these justices that do the background on case law. They have their clerks, also known as briefing attorneys. So a justice's opinion, he may say one thing beforehand, but as evidence presents itself and as case law presents itself as derived from these briefing attorneys that they have, also called clerks, they're entitled to change their opinion according to the way the facts present themselves.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons, again, there's been a lot of retrospective look at the Supreme Court justices or then to be Supreme Court justices statements while they were doing the confirmation process. And a lot of the more common response, as much as there was talk about the litmus test, was being pretty well rejected, I would have to say, by these potential justices saying, well, I can't comment on any potential situation. But a lot of what they said, particularly in the last term of office, was, I do think that it is currently precedent. But of course, the point has been made, among others, by a seemingly slightly misinterpreted tweet by, among others, Senator Cornyn, that there has been precedent overturned as well.
Yes. Well, anyway, like I said, hey, Frankie, quit being a fool. Take a Geritol and get educated.
Absolutely. Oh, well, thank you for the point in the call there. Do appreciate it.
I turn the mic over to you, Andrew.
All right, you have a good one there. All right, let's see if we can get to one more call before we hit that next break. We do have Jerry from Northwest on the line here with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call. I have another answer for Frankie also.
Mhm.
Article 1, Section 1, Line 1 of the U.S. Constitution. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in the Congress of the United States, which shall consist of the Senate and the House of Representatives, period. The Supreme Court does not have the authority to make law, period. That's not in the Constitution. The first one was what I said.
No, of course, yeah.
So the Supreme Court basically did a correction on themselves. It did not end abortion. That they turned it back to the states so that we could have democracy vote on it, Frankie. Your state, New Mexico, has already decided they're going to murder babies. State of Texas says no. We want them to grow up and have a life. Let them have freedom of life. Thank you, Texas. Thank you, Andrew, for hearing my statement.
Absolutely.
Have a good day.
You too as well. Have a good one. All right, that's going to take us through that next break right now. I mean, I'm, again, fully expecting this debate to continue on, particularly as we get closer to these next set of elections. A lot more comments coming in there as well. But we got to take that break. Tell you what we got coming up for you on the show, delving further into definitely some of these issues and a whole lot more. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Back in a minute.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A restricted right lane on the I-10 westbound between Wrestler to Red is causing 5 to 10 minute delays. I-10 westbound. Police are responding to a crash I-10 westbound at the Copia Street on-ramp. Spur 601 Liberty Expressway eastbound at Global Reach. A disabled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder. And an accident reported Lee Trevino southbound at Rojas Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Discover. If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. And that's why Discover matches all of the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. That's your regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is the leading cancer killer, but can be prevented with regular screenings starting at age 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today and visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
Want to kill bugs like the pros do? Now you can with Maggie's Farm. Created by pest control professionals, Maggie's Farm plant and mineral-based products provide amazingly effective insect control. Ants, roaches, spiders, flies, mosquitoes, you name it, we kill it. All of our plant-based products are safe to use around children and pets and won't leave behind a messy, oily residue like some other products. Maggie's Farm. Lethal to bugs. Easy on the planet. Look for Maggie's Farm at your favorite retail store or at maggiesfarmproducts.com.
Blue Star medicated ointment works fast to relieve the pain and itch of almost any skin irritation.
It's amazing. It's like as soon as you put it on, you can feel it working. We've had Blue Star in the family for years. It works on everything.
I love the cooling sensation on my athlete's foot.
What a relief for my eczema.
Nothing worked on my dry, cracked skin until I tried Blue Star.
Blue Star is great for scalp itch.
Look for the white box with the Blue Star in the first aid section. Feel Blue Star work fast or your money back.
Calling all science heads. Want to win 15 grand in prizes while saving the world? Here's your chance to save our planet by joining the AR Science Fair. Just pick your track, design it, and submit. It's that easy. Winners will even get published. Visit us online for all the details.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of two people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
KTSM AM El Paso is News Radio 690, an iHeart radio station. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk, going to just about do it for us here today. But don't worry, we'll, of course, be back tomorrow with a whole lot more that we are going to be talking about, delving into, including, of course, some of the topics we're working on for you here on the show. Going to be talking more about some of those local, need situations, including with the El Pasoans Fighting Hunger Food Bank, and what some of the realities are. We've, of course, talked with them and had some work with them over the years and over recent times. And what does it stand now? We'll get into that, as well as some of those lingering legal questions that we've had brought up here, including you may have seen some creative solutions for gas prices and why doing anything that involves ditching the pump or ditching from the pump is just a super bad idea. Explaining exactly why, and in those, sound legal reasoning. So stay tuned for that. Just a few other things we're working on for you, as well as, of course, probably going to be checking in as long as there isn't more heavily breaking on what is coming out of County Commissioner's Court and some of those reasonings with Stephanie and our news partners there. So a whole lot to look forward to for more on this week. And just as a slight side note, put out a call for it before, but in case it got missed, because I haven't heard from anyone, if anyone with any of the upcoming July 4th parades are out there, please drop me a line. My email is andrewpolk@iheartmedia.com, andrewpolk@iheartmedia.com. So essentially just take the J out from the way I say it. And let us know what you got going on, because we'd like to talk about it on air, let people know what's coming up, because yes, we're almost at the end of June and that holiday is approaching. Plus, I know some people might want to be involved with it. Let's just say I usually don't talk about the El Paso History Radio Show at this point during the week, but this weekend we will be talking about July 4th and even some of the locally relevant history to it. You might not be totally blamed for thinking, what does this area, the Desert Southwest, in that era of history have to do with American independence? But let's just put it this way. There are even ways that people whose ancestors resided in this area to apply for membership in some of those genealogical organizations, such as Sons and Daughters of the American Revolution, based on both their recommendations, requirements, and contributions they may have had at that point in time. So we'll be delving into that and a whole lot more on that show. So part of the reason I'm asking about these July 4th parades. So hit me up, let me know what's going on. We'll be very happy to talk a little bit further about that. So that's going to about do it for us here today. We're going to have a little more conversation about this and all the issues going on. Did have one last call that came in through pound 250 that we did not quite get to last week. I mean, there was a lot of calls. I think it did technically come in, but we'll leave it on this note here where we had, again, through pound 250. If you still want to leave a message through that, like if we're in between shows, pound 250 is what you dial on your phone. Say the keyword Talk El Paso. You can leave your own message like this.
This is Steve from East El Paso. Today is a very good day. Today, a foolish and murderous decision made decades ago was overturned, one that should have never been made in the first place. Today, abortion, which is nothing more than baby killing, despite all of the many, many euphemisms that the left has invented to hide its true nature, was itself aborted at the federal level. We good people who believe in life have a very good reason to celebrate today, but we also must be wary of the very likely possibility of leftist violence and rioting and destruction, much like the deadly riots of 2 years ago. Another important point to consider is that despite all of their media fear-mongering using their usual fake news tools and celebrities and various types of intimidation, the leftist media blitz has failed to intimidate the Supreme Court. We good people must now look to continue this good momentum and look to attack and overturn other laws that leftists cling to, such as same-sex marriage, and look to make new protections for children against groomers and their harmful agenda, which many times is aimed at innocent children. The left understands the true nature of power. We must do the same. The patriots of the future will understand this. Thank you.
There's a lot to get into there. So again, my apologies for not getting to that one last week. But if you want to leave us messages, you're welcome to do so in between shows. But that'll do it for us here today. So I want to thank everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. That's really how this keeps working. And again, it's not a club. It's not a sign up. You just have to be willing to participate. We'll keep doing that every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road. And have a great evening, all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A restricted right lane on the I-10 westbound between Wrestler to Red is causing 5 to 10 minute delays. I-10 westbound. Police are responding to a crash I-10 westbound at the Copia Street on-ramp. Spur 601 Liberty Expressway eastbound at Global Reach. A disabled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder. And an accident reported Lee Trevino southbound at Rojas Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
I'm Roger Waters, and this is not a drill.
This is the real deal. Pink Floyd's Roger Waters' This Is Not a Drill North American Tour rolls across the U.S.
How would you like to join me on tour?